Welcome to Martini Time. It's kind of warm here in Virginia today, but cool inside. So let's see what my monkey mind will come up with. I've been Friday night. I don't even know what day it is today. Today's Saturday. Last night we watched the Bachelor and the Bobby-soxer with Cary Grant, Myrna Loy, Shirley Temple, Cary Grant. And as you can see here, we got this fella here caught in a vice or bookends between a mother and a daughter. And I talked about this this morning, but I want to talk about it again because I've been talking about it all day. I see a movie, and it's like a Mr. Coffee percolator. It just keeps perking, and I write about it, and I see more things when I write about it, and I want to share it. And I just saw so much of the seeds of our own world today, and this movie was 1947, right after World War II. A new world was being created. If you recall, we had, before World War II, we had the 30s, which was a depression. Now that's a psychological depression too, a collective depression. There was no lack of money, it was a psychological depression. America was depressed. There was plenty of food, there was plenty of money, but we couldn't use it like a person who's depressed and they're living in a house they got money and food and everything, but they're depressed. Can't use it. I just don't want to get up. I can't make use of anything. I can't create anything. I'm depressed, you see. There's plenty of stuff around, but I can't do anything. That's kind of like what depression is. So the 30s was a collective depression. And then, thank you Hitler and Tojo, World War II. And the depressed America didn't want to get into it, but then when Hitler and Tojo decided we're going to have to attack you in order to get you into this war, we can't let you sit this out. So we're going to stick you so you do get in. And they stuck the sleeping giant, and America woke up. And the industrial might of our factories was focused. The whole nation was focused. No depression. Focused and creative. Can-do mentality. You see. And we just begin cranking out tanks and planes and tanks and guns and bombs, and this like a big meat grinder cramping, and all the women went to work and the men went into the army. The whole society was focused. Every town, I know here in Blackstone, here in the middle of Virginia, there was air raid wardens who would, and people got air raid jobs to keep a lookout for German bombers. The fact that there was no German aircraft carriers was beside the point. It was the fact that everybody was pitching in. It was a total war, total national focus. So World War II ended, and you have the Bachelor and the Bobby-soxer. Okay, so this movie was a romantic comedy with Cary Grant. He was very good at it because he had this comic timing. And so what I began to see in the movie was the rise of particular forces that are still percolating in our society today. And one of them was the wise man in this movie was a psychiatrist. So after World War II, during this period, not just after World War II, but all through this, the psychiatrist became our shaman. if you want healing of the mind, you don't go to a witch doctor or a priest, you go to a psychiatrist. And he had his little Oedipus theories and stuff like that. But he was also wise, and he was able to become connect up our Cary Grant and Myrna Loy in a romantic engagement. He was able to manipulate the situation so they got together. Okay, anyway. The other thing that was really interesting about this, that Shirley Temple played in as a teenager, a Bobby-soxer. They were Bobby-soxers in the 40s, were the teenagers who had socks, Bobby socks on their ankles, girls. And this was the age of romantic or animus projection. Anima projection. This was a Carl Jung theory, where you have somebody like Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, these crooners, these singers were like hat racks for this female animus, the knight in shining armor, the one. Indian mythology has this with Krishna and the gopis, the cowherd girls who were fascinated and in love with Krishna. And he would dance with every one of them at the same time. They would meet in the night and dance under the moon. And Krishna would dance with all of them at the same time. So when you're listening to Frank Sinatra as a Bobby-soxer, he's dancing with every one of those girls at the same time. The one, the shining knight. So this movie was kind of like about that play. And of course the knight in shining armor was a metaphor for your Mr. Right, or your romantic, your soulmate, you see. And they kind of showed that where the Bobby-soxer, Shirley Temple, saw Cary Grant giving a lecture, and he became this knight in shining armor, and her eyes got real big, pupils got dilated, you know. Oh, it's a vision. So she was in love. And then later on, her mother, who was a judge, another theme, also saw him as the shining knight, you know, and her eyes got big, her pupils dilated, you know. He's the one, you know. So now they've got to sort this out, you see, because now you got the mother and the daughter and the mother both projecting animus onto Cary Grant, you see. And so anyway, the thing got resolved, and the daughter went back to her teenage boyfriend, and the mother and Cary Grant went off on the plane to California to a life ever after. But anyway, the other thing that I saw rising in this was the teenage culture. Now, in the Depression, there was no teenage culture. This is a new invention. Adolescence, teenage culture as a separate marketable culture, where you had the teenage culture had its own language, its own movie stars, its own, well, it started out with MySpace, but its own space that was in between childhood and adulthood. And this space keeps getting wider in our society. And now it goes all the way up to the 30s. People still living in their parents' basement. Delayed adolescence. You know, and so a lot of the men in the South are delayed adolescents. You know, the woman holds the house together and puts bread on the table, and the man goes out and hunts and gets drunk with his buddies. You know, that kind of still orbiting around the mother. Delayed adolescence basically means that there has been no transition from childhood to adulthood. They're stuck. So they go back and wah, 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 wah. I can't get out, I can't get out, I can't grow up, you see. The rites of passage were gone. Now, World War II, there was no adolescence in World War II. You were a kid, and then you went to war. And boot camp was your transition, your initiation into adulthood. And the same today. The only rite of passage left for males in our culture is joining the army. So you join the army and you go through a identity shift from your adolescent, from your individual ego, long hair, your music and your bebop and all the stuff, and you go through this funeral pyre that burns up your ego, and you become a Marine. And now you're identified with your tribe, which is your platoon or your company, your buddies. You see, now that is your tribe. That is who you're fighting for. So there's a shift in identity from an individual ego out for itself to a surrendered ego who is the tribe, whatever that tribe's form may take, you see. So that's really the last rite of passage that really works in our culture. And it used to be, in a farming culture, is that the children started working from childhood up, and so there was no big adolescent intermediate vacation time. You just started working on the farm, and the next thing you know, you were an adult working on the farm, and there was no adolescence. There was no need. It was a very functional transition, and that's the way mankind has always lived. There was no adolescence with its neurosis and angst, and so then, of course, marketing came in and says, wow, we can sell these kids stuff. So marketing then creates the symbols of adolescence, which delays adolescence and retards it, you see. So I saw that rising up in the movie. Let's see, what else did I see? The other thing I noticed about Cary Grant, and this is why he was so good as a romantic comedian, he had good timing. Facial expressions, the facial expressions of perplexity. Now here he was, a beautiful, masculine, modern man, and he always plays successful persons, He never played some bum. He was a successful artist, man about town, suave, in control. And this is the modern man, modern white male. And now after World War II, the situation began. It's kind of like post-traumatic syndrome. It's kind of like Hurt Locker, in the sense that in World War II, the soldiers were certain. The soldier doesn't display weakness. Military people don't, they don't go, ooh, what should I do? Ooh. You see, they're direct action. John Wayne, So this was the kind of man that was bred in World War II. But after the war, they come home, and now they're confronted with the rising of women in society. They no longer, they all went to work during World War II, took over the factory jobs of the men. They didn't give that up when the men came back. It was good being independent, having your own money. So the women were entering into the workforce, which was another thing about this movie. Myrna Loyd played a judge, a strict judge, and she was a hard sentencer, kind of like the first Judge Judy. But at the same time, she doubted her. Oh, was I too hard on the sentencing? Ooh, she would ask her friends, do you think I was too hard? And then the problem with her was she knew she couldn't catch a man when she was playing a man's role. So there was that element, So that's why when Cary Grant, the knight in shining armor, getting married and getting Mr. Right, he preempted being a judge, and you get the idea. That was a new ingredient, and so the perplexity of Cary Grant in his romantic comedies was that he's always caught in a little double bind situation where he loses control. So he's kind of like, but he treats it humorously. He's able to laugh it off, make you laugh. But he's really demonstrating the modern man caught in the conflicting choices and commandments of the modern world. Kind of like in Hurt Locker when the soldier comes back from Iraq and he can't choose cereal. So he goes back to Iraq where life was simple. You either blew yourself up or you didn't. Life and death, very simple. Modern life is complex and confusing, you know. And you can't be the authoritative man where in the old paradigm that America came out of, you see. So anyway, you've got these different forces at work. And the other thing that I began to see, now granted, you have to understand, you give me a movie and I milk that udder till I get buckets fulls of insights, and there may be only a quart in there, but I'm going to get 2 or 3 gallons out of it. So, you know, give me some slack. It's not, that's just the way I work, you know. That's the monkey mind. So the other thing I began to see was that the you got all this industry now that's cranking out tanks and guns. What are you going to do with that? Going to go back to the Depression? Just close them all? Send all the workers home? Go back to, depressed. I'm so depressed. You see, go back to that? No. So we're going to crank out washing machines. We're going to crank out toasters. We're going to crank out cars. We're going to crank out consumer goods. But how do we get people to buy that stuff? Because in the Depression, you had one car and it lasted till the thing died. My uncle Robbie was that way. I mean, he had a Chevy he kept for 20 years. TV set, everything. You didn't buy anything until it absolutely just disintegrated. Then he would go, and then a big debate, you know, well, we just have to go invest in this new TV set, you see. But there was this mentality of, it's basically the farm mentality where you save everything, and because something may break down and, I got some this and that. It's the MacGyver principle. I got this and that on the back porch, and I got this and that in the shed, and I can make something that'll get this thing going, you see. You don't go out and buy something new. My wife and I are so different in this way. I grew up in a military family, living in apartments and rental property, no place to storage. Every 2 years you pack up and ship everything. You don't keep anything. So it was kind of like if something wears out, you throw it out and buy a new one. My wife, growing up in a small town, growing up in a farming mentality, rural area, saves everything. So we always have this little contest between my urge to throw it out and her urge to save it. I might need that. Don't know what, but I might need it. And so this is our little game of save and throw out that goes back and forth, and we try to find a happy middle. But that idea of recycling or buying something new is a necessary consciousness to make our economy work. Because if everybody saved everything and just kept it until it fell apart, the economy would stop and we'd go back to depression. So we have to create a new consciousness that is a consumer, right? Now, what is a consumer? A consumer is an image consciousness. I'm an image. This was Mad Men, was all about that. The image man, self-image. Take a picture of my image. How do I look, you see? Is my image good? Got a profile of my image. All the likes and dislikes, you see. All the pleasures and the unpleasant things I like. I have qualities. My image. My image is a thing. My image is an ego. My image is an individual, a unique image, you see. So I try to be unique. I try to be different. I try to wear different fashions, you see. But all the same, I try to be, I follow the rebels because they're unique. They're doing something different, you see. So this image, is basically seeing myself as others see me. So I'm very defensive of criticism. I'm very protective of my image. I feel the frowns and the pricks, you see. I feel the insults. I feel the slights. They hurt to the core of my image. And I'll rise up and to the point of killing somebody who hurts my image. In public, I lose face, you see. The image has a face, and I don't want to lose it. So this is the new modern consumer man, consumer, you see. And why does that image want to consume? Because it's not real. It feels a certain incompleteness. Something is missing. I don't know what. Something is wrong. I don't know what. Something is empty. I don't know what. I can't fill it up. I eat and I eat and I buy, but I'm still not full. Something is missing, you see. Oh, it's that new car. So advertising comes in, points out that feeling of incompleteness, affirms it. Yes, you need something, you see. I feel your pain. Here's what you do. You see all these people driving that new car? That's you, right? That's you. Right, so the ad says, oh, those people are so happy and complete. And I feel like I need something. I don't know what I need. I need something. But they're so happy. I want to be like them. How can I be like them? Oh, buy that car. So I buy the car. And then for a while, I'm very happy. Oh, you have a new car. Wow, I'm driving a new car, you see. But then pretty soon, the new becomes old. And the incompleteness comes back. Oh, something's missing. So, new washing machine. You see what I mean? The incompleteness of the image consciousness, the image person, creates a feeling of incompleteness, and then advertising comes in and puts a product in your hand and say, here, eat this. That will ease your pain. That will that will heal your wound, you see. Oh, and you eat that. So it's kind of like a Eucharist. It's kind of like a bait and switch game where you're baited, the yearning for completeness is aroused by the ad, and then you're giving a product. Instead of giving completeness, which the ad can't do, so nothing can give you completeness, no product, no form, because every form, every product is going to have a incompleteness or a limitation to it. No product is perfectly whole forever and ever, you see. Although they may advertise themselves as that. You'll never need another washing machine. You see. So, this whole... and Mad Men was all about this. The advertising became the sacrament to this promised land of products. So, instead of, in the Middle Ages, the church was a portal to heaven and to avoid hell. So everybody, the whole church, was a closed system. Well, we kind of like created our own closed system. After the Protestant Reformation and the scientific method and the creation of capitalism, working for profit, working for me, working for my ego, my image. Middle class, I see monkey mind is jumping now, watch out. The monkey mind is jumping. Hold down, monkey mind. Getting back to the movie. So all of these things are arising in this classic period after World War II. And they continue through the 50s. And then the 60s comes in and cracks the cosmic egg open, you see. So the hippie movement, one of its themes was Go organic. Simplify. Get rid of all those consumer stuff. Live in a tent. Live in a tribe. Don't live as a separate individual ego, living to consume. Live in relationship. Live in a organic life. Get back to the earth. Farm. Do it all by hand, you see. That was a big movement in the 60s, whether you were a hippie or not. And that still continues today. Eat natural, eat organic, gluten-free, sugar-free, natural, organic, you see. And all that's been marketed now. So now you want to be organic and natural, you got to buy the product that will make you feel organic and natural. So every need that comes up, you see, there is an industry that's going to feed it. And you still remain the consumer. That's incomplete. Nothing has changed. You just evolve in the products you consume. You see. And the same way with spiritual needs. So now the 60s opened up a spiritual yearning. So now you got the gurus and the new age things, and you got all these new products coming in to feed this spiritual hunger, you see. And you can switch around horizontally. You can go, I'll be a Christian, try that. The Life of Pi was all about that. Life Pi horizontally switched and tried all the religions. None of them brought him completeness. So he dropped them all. He dropped, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism. Went through it, tried it, didn't like it, went through it, went to college, rationalism, secular humanism, tried that, didn't work, gave it up. That's when he went on the adventure with the tiger, you see. But I don't want to get into that anymore. But that whole idea of the horizontal movement is not the answer to the feeling of being incomplete. The answer to feeling incomplete is the fact that I believe I'm an image or some form, you see, and I cling to that. So I just try to find new clothes for my image. Well, try this suit on, try this one on, try this religion on, try this philosophy, try this product, you see. Does that work? No. So when you go through all of these product changes, you come to the realization that no form, no product will satisfy the feeling of being incomplete and in exile, you see. And which goes right back to Genesis. Adam and Eve split the world into this and that and got exiled from the unity. You see, the Garden of Eden is a metaphor for unity. The one, the unity of me and the world. So, when they ate the apple, they created the consciousness of I and it. Boom. I and it, you see. But I and it is my experience. And I is that which experiences it, you see. That's really one. But we perceive it as two. So now, I'm looking at my watch. So now, the I is pursuing the experience that will complete it. But it's already complete. It's just split, like two yolks, you see. One yoke chasing the other yoke in time. In time. So completeness is kicked into tomorrow. I'll be complete when I get that new car, you see. And then I'm in pain until I get it. Desire is really pain. If you ever really look at desire, it's really pleasure pain. The pleasure is the idea that I'll be free from desire when I get the object. Desire creates a pain of longing for something, and I have pleasure in imagining my having the something that will liberate me from the pain of the desire. So the Buddha's teaching is all about that. You see. So anyway, getting back to our movie, what else was in the movie? We had the Bobby-soxers, the rise of the adolescent culture, the extended adolescence. We had the male who is perplexed by the contradictions of life not which way to go. He's always kind of like caught, catch-22. We had the woman who was in a male role and not certain and sure of it, who really wanted to be married and have Mr. Right or the shining knight. You had Carl Jung and these anima projections and the Bobby-soxer craze that awoke with crooners like Frank Sinatra. And then along came Elvis, you see. And then along came the Beatles. And, and along came Justin Bieber or whatever. But this whole extended adolescence, unable to get out of childhood into adulthood, trapped in this limbo period, you see, and then fed by and affirmed by marketing, because it's good business, big market, you see. So let me see, what else? I think that was enough enough right now. So anyway, thank you for dropping in for this martini time, and I'll see you at the movies.